YouTube Ozic going the Godows is back, ranking every single NFL secondary from 32 to 1 for the 2023 season. We're also predicting the starters in each secondary, so 2 corners, 2 safeties, and that nickel or box player. So this should be a lot of fun. We did the same thing for offensive line units and defensive line units. Also ranked players by position as a playlist full of those videos. A lot of this right before the season content still rolling out. In-season content when the season starts. Cannot wait for all that, what we have planned. So hopefully you join us, like, subscribe to notifications on, follow us on Twitter. Very important. We'll be talking during games, especially during preseason games going forward. Any link you're looking for, social media sponsors, including Liquid IV, our Twitter links pinned in the comments for all of that. Number 32 is going to be the Las Vegas Raiders. They were clearly 32, and then they signed Marcus Peters, and that might have boosted them up a spot. There's another team out there that actually signed a defensive back after the Raiders signed Marcus Peters, so they got boosted as well. So the Raiders find themselves at 32. I mean, Peters, not the player he once was, but a solid addition, a decent corner still. Nate Hobbs was much better as a slot corner. They played him outside last year. They could continue to play him outside. JAKORIAN Bennett, rookie corner from Maryland, has some upside on the inside. Could play outside. They also could go, probably would be better if they went Peters face on and Hobbs on the inside. I just don't know if they do that. Safety, Trevon Mareg, decent safety, has upside, needs to hit that upside. We need to see him take another step here, be more consistent. Marcus Epps, somewhat of a bigger signing of theirs. I wasn't thrilled about it. Been an okay player for Philly. I also thought he was made to look better, with the way that scheme was coached. A lot of help defense in that secondary, unique secondary, a very strong cornerback duo. Gardner Johnson in front of him as well are moving around. So, the Eagles actually had some weaker safeties that, they played better than how they are based on how that defense was ran, really. So I would not expect him to be he could be a decent player. I would not expect him to be nearly as good as what he was in Philly. So what's holding up the secondary? Peters, and where is he at in his career? And Mareg, does he hit that upside? I thought he'd be better at this point than he actually is. So they find themselves at 32. 31 is the Rams, which I actually think the Raiders passed the Rams when they signed Marcus Peters, but the Rams recently signed John Johnson, who used to be on the Rams, so a pretty solid free safety. So that helped them out because they lost some safeties in free agency. So they have John Johnson, Jordan Fuller. It's actually a decent safety group. Corner, a little thin, but Kendrick was okay for a rookie last year. Witherspoon's a decent guy, maybe better as a backup. Kobe Durant, actually a pretty solid slot option in his second year. So, yeah, nothing sexy about the secondary. John Johnson, is he as good as he was when he's on the Rams last time? Fuller, it's been a couple years since we've seen him. He's had some injuries too. So, again, kind of weak in the cornerback group, but some young guys that could get better. So they are at 31. 30 is going to be the Colts. I love the Julius Brents pick. I was a big Julius Brents fan. So he's got upside. Can we expect him to be tremendous right away? No, but I do think he has a lot of upside. Projecting Dallas Flowers at the other corner spot. That's kind of a battle between a few guys. I did like the draft pick of Darius Rush. He's kind of an upside, a little bit of a project guy, though. And Kenny Moore, who could play outside, is a pretty solid slot corner. Again, maybe not as good in this scheme or how he was in the Eberflus days, but still very solid. Then Julian Blackmon and Rodney Thomas. Kind of a sneaky sleeper safety duo. It's not the best thing in the world. They also have Nick Cross, could step up. Rodney Thomas was kind of an underrated player last year, was pretty decent. But, yeah, young. Nothing really stands out big time with this group. So the Colts are at 30. 29 is going to be the Cardinals. Marco Wilson. And the good thing here, Jonathan Gannon's very good at coaching secondaries, the DBs. So that could boost them a little bit better than how they look on paper. Marco Wilson, Antonio Hamilton, got some experience last couple of years, but not the best cornerback duo in the world. Budda Baker is the bright spot. Jalen Thompson's all right, solid safety. And Isaiah Simmons, they're moving from more of a linebacker to safety, going to kind of be that box guy for them. And he could actually step back and play safety when Budda Baker's up in the box or the slot doing his thing. So we'll see them use 3 safeties more than, 3 guys listed as safeties more than 3 guys listed at corner. But yeah, they'll be coached pretty well, but they could definitely get stronger at both corner spots, even though there's some upside with a guy like Wilson still. I mean, they have Baker. Thompson's pretty solid. But Simmons, I think he's better of a linebacker than he is DB. They're moving him, so how will he? I mean, he could be a playmaker, I suppose, in the box. We will see. The Vikings coming at number 28. Funny, I thought they were pretty similar to the Cardinals. They got that big, bright safety and, Budda Baker versus Harrison Smith, and then But they added Byron Murphy from the Cardinals, which is kind of their big addition, who's a very solid corner that can play outside and inside. So this is what I have projected. Murphy is by far their best corner, so I think they would use him in the most important spot. So sometimes it'll be outside, sometimes it'll be inside. They start him on the outside. When he's on the outside, I see JOEJUAN Williams playing on the inside with his experience, not only under Brian Flores, but on the inside. When Murphy is inside, it could be Caleb Evans and Mekhi Blackman on the outside. So we could see a little bit of a mixture here, but Murphy is the bright spot at the corner position. The other guys do have some upside. Andrew Booth, you would like for him to get out there. He's had some injury concerns. Safety group, Harrison Smith, and it was Cam Bynum last year. Lewis Seen has that upside, has looked good in camp. You would like to think he takes over at that spot. So Harrison Smith, Byron Murphy, they kind of carry this group a little bit. You do have those bright spots there. But I guess debatable on who starts where. But again, sometimes Murphy could be inside, sometimes outside, and that could mix some things up. I think when he is outside, it would be JOEJUAN Williams there. But I think the secondary will get some help with the Brian Flores blitz. I think you're going to have to blitz with the secondary. They're not going to be able to cover forever. So that was kind of the issue last year. They weren't good, the secondary, so they couldn't cover forever, especially the corners. But the Vikings just weren't blitzing, so it should be a little bit better this year. 27, the Steelers, which we're used to them having a good defense, and they'll still be a pretty good defense, but it's Minkah Fitzpatrick carrying this group. Patrick Peterson, who actually was pretty solid in the first half of the year last year, came back down to earth at the end of last year. Going to be more of a zone corner these days. Mike Tomlin usually likes running man, so that'd be interesting. Joey Porter Jr. could have some growing pains. And Chandon Sullivan, a decent slot guy. Minkah Fitzpatrick, one of the very best safeties in football. DeMonte KZ, injury concern, could be decent here. It's not Edmonds anymore, but it's tough. I mean, they might play better than how they look on paper. They look pretty bad on paper, to be honest, but they do have a star player, Minkah Fitzpatrick. Number 26, give me the Falcons. AJ Terrell, big-time player, and Jesse Bates, big-time. So they got two big-time players. There's a little thin after that. Jeff Okudah, currently injured. Multiple guys could take that spot. Could Mike Hughes take that spot like Mike Hughes in the slot? But a little thin on those spots right there. But it's really held up by Terrell and Jesse Bates, and then Richie Grant, who they could need him to take another step up as well. Terrell has to stay healthy, another pointer there. So they're at 26. 25, the Giants, like Adoree Jackson, like Xavier McKinney. They aren't the best at their position, but I like those guys. Deonte Banks, I like that draft pick. I think really fits Martindale's scheme. Could be some growing pains for a rookie corner. Darnay Holmes versus multiple guys, really. Could be Holmes versus Flott versus Bobby McCain could play in the slot. Holmes got the most snaps last year. Listed Bobby McCain as a starting safety, which this could be. They had Pinnock play a lot last year, but that was kind of for when McKinney was out. So I think he's his backup, in my opinion. So Dane Belton could be the guy instead of Bobby McCain. So I thought about that. McCain could play the safety or the slot spot. So and he got a good amount of reps last year in his career in general. So that's a tough one to predict, but I'm gonna predict that. I guess there's some balance here. There's nothing great about it, but good players in Adoree Jackson and Xavier McKinney. 24 is going to be the Tennessee Titans. Then the defensive line is the bright spot of their defense. But Fulton had some good moments, 2 years ago mainly. Sean Murphy-Bunting can play outside in the slot. Roger McCreary can play outsider in the slot, and they'll go in that order. McCreary in the slot. So young players continue to get better. Amani Hooker's decent. He can continue to get better as well. It's really held up by Kevin Byard, who's a star safety in this league. But there is some balance. There's really no hole. Kind of banking on young players getting better here for the Tennessee Titans. 23 is going to be the Detroit Lions. Interesting group here. Cam Sutton was a pretty solid addition. He had some time in the inside and the outside with the Steelers. So he could do something similar with the Lions, but I'm more so thinking because who they have for the slot. I'm more so thinking Sutton's going to get a lot of time on the outside. Then Jerry Jacobs, who actually, underrated player, looked pretty decent at the end of last year. They have some options to take that spot. They did sign Emmanuel Mosley. He hasn't been playing much football the last few years, though. So I'll go Sutton and Jacobs, and then the safeties. Kirby Joseph, who I like. He has a lot of upside. He looked really good at the end of last year. Good rangy free safety. And they have Tracy Walker, who only got to play a few games last year. Then Gardner Johnson, who many of you will list as a safety, but he's going to play in the slot quite a bit. He kind of worked in Gannon's unique scheme with the Philadelphia Eagles. I think we're mainly going to see Gardner Johnson in the slot, but if he has to fill in at safety, he'll play alongside Kirby Joseph. I think he can do that. They also have Brian Branch, who is listed as a safety. He was for Alabama, but he really played almost all of his snaps in the slot. So I like Brian Branch a lot. But they can move around. Maybe if they're playing Gardner Johnson at a traditional safety spot and put Branch in the slot, they actually might be better in that route. But this is the route I strongly believe they will go. To start the season, which young, pretty solid. Kirby Joseph, like his upside a lot. Are we going to see? Because I thought Gardner Johnson took a big step up last year, but it's because the Eagles used him in so many different ways. I don't know if we'll see that Gardner Johnson, but we'll still see a very good one from the slot. So Lions, young and improving. They're at number 23. 22, the Texans, young and improving as well. Derek Stingley, I think, takes a big step up this year. I think he can be that corner that we expected him to be, especially under D'Amico Ryans, who calls very good coverages, calls a very, very good defense. Steven Nelson's been a very solid corner. They also have Shaq Griffin as well, who's been a very solid corner. So serious camp battle there on who will win that other corner spot. But they have three pretty solid outside corners. And Desmond King, who's actually one of the better slot players in football, so we won't see them use the Stingley, Nelson, and Griffin, because you have a very good slot corner in Desmond King. Jalen Petrie had a monster rookie year last year. I think he's going to be great in D'Amico Ryans' defense, too. Could be like a Hafunga-type player like he had with the 49ers. Could be even better. And Jimmy Ward, who used to be more of a safety, been playing in the slot in recent years. So, you have options. You can move him in the slot if you need him to, and then somebody else at safety. But this is the way I think they're going to go here. It's actually a sneaky group, and it's a well-coached group here. So they're at 22. 21, the Jags. Tyson Campbell took a major step up last year. Very solid corner, can continue to get better. Darius Williams can play outside or inside. Very solid corner as well. Herndon is expected to be the slot guy. That's a spot where they could get a little better. Rayshon Jenkins was a playmaker last year. He's not the best safety in the world, but he's a big-time playmaker. Andre Sisco has some range and I think some upside as well. So you got some balance to this group. You got playmaking ability. You got maybe a star, not yet, but incoming, in Tyson Campbell. Darius Williams is a very solid corner as well. So another well-coached group. Number 20 to me, the Panthers. J.C. Horn has to stay healthy, but he can be a very top corner in football if he does. Dante Jackson's all right. They have Henderson to back him up. Von Bell, been pretty solid. I don't think he'll be as good as what he was in the Bengals. The Bengals are very, very, very well coached on defense. Maybe the best, most well-coached team on defense and football. And he's playing alongside some really good players, and he is again, but he'll be very solid. Xavier Woods, free safety. They could get better at that spot. Jeremy Chin's very solid, but I think he's been very, very solid as a strong safety. They're going to play him around in the box, sometimes linebacker. And again, he has that in him, but I like him in coverage, and I don't know if he'll be like downfield in coverage as much as he was before. So, but he's a very good football player. So yeah, Horn's got to stay healthy. They got to use Chin right. To me, I wish they would have went out and instead of signing Bell, even though it's a good player, I wish they would have went out and signed a better free safety and then played Chin at strong and then had a better free safety than Xavier Woods. So I thought that was interesting what they did. But Horn could be a star. Jeremy Chin, if used right, could be a star. So it's a unique group, I suppose. 19, the Bears, kind of an underrated group. Maybe most would rank them a little lower, but Jalen Johnson's a decent corner. I thought he played his best a few years ago. Kind of got to get back on track there. Tyreek Stevenson seems like a good fit. Looking good in training camp and preseason so far. Kyler Gordon could be solid in the slot. And this in the safety group isn't, it's not the two best safeties in the planet, but it's a pretty good balanced group. I thought Eddie Jackson took a step up last year. Jaquan Brisker was pretty impressive for a rookie. Could clean up on the tackles a little bit, but could continue to get better. So I think it's a pretty balanced group. Again, with a lot of upside. Jackson took a step up last year. Could he be? He's not a guy with a tremendous upside, but could he continue to get better? Feed off last year. Brisker's going to get better. I think Jalen Johnson played better this year. Stevenson could be a sneaky piece. Gordon should be able to get better. So I think a pretty balanced group. I think Eberflus coaches a good secondary as well. 18, the Packers. Yeah, they're thin at the safety position. Savage is a decent playmaker, but he's overall been a little underwhelming. Rudy Ford, decent play. Mainly been a special teams player. He's kind of got to take that Adrian Amos spot, so I'm surprised they didn't replace him a little better. So the safety group kind of weighs down the pretty good corner group. Jair Alexander, one of the best in football. And then Douglas and Stokes, which are solid corners, nothing eye-popping there. Alexander does carry the group, but you could say the cornerback group is pretty good. Savage, a decent player, but I got them at 18. 17, the Seahawks, which this is a major step up from last year because they were towards the bottom of the NFL based off last year. But Tariq Woolen was fantastic. They had another young, very good corner in Devon Witherspoon, which I think could be good right away. Quandre Diggs, a very solid free safety. Jamal Adams is back, who's a fantastic box player / strong safety. And they have Julian Love, who has experience at safety as a downfield in the slot, slot corner, played corner, outside corner in college. So I like how unique this group is. If Adams is in the box, Love can play like that strong safety spot. If Adams is injured again, you still have a good safety in Julian Love who kind of can do it all. And another, Michael Jackson, a decent other corner that they have as well. If they want to, if somebody gets in, they want to mix him in as well. You could move Witherspoon into the slot. So you can kind of do different things. So a young group that got better. With Witherspoon and Love, they also get Adams back, so this group should definitely be better this year. 16, the Chiefs. L'Jarius Sneed's fantastic, can play outside, inside. Trent McDuffie can play outside, inside. Then you have Justin Reed, Brian Cook, who I'm expecting to be the starting safeties this year, but Mike Edwards could be a starting safety, but I like his play around the box as well, so they could use a lot of those guys, but they have so much depth. They have corners and safeties that all can kind of play in the box. The nickel area could even maybe some upside on the outside cornerback position. So I like how deep they are. I know Sneed kind of carries this group maybe a little bit, but they got good players. I like how deep they are. They're coached pretty well as well. 15, the Commanders. Kendall Fuller, a solid corner. They add Emmanuel Forbes, who I think is going to be solid as well. St. Juice they like on the inside last year. He could be better. There was some, one time they would get beat. They would have him kind of man in the slot over. There's some slot guys taking over from the offensive side receiver position. So I thought he would get beat a little bit last year. But, yeah, it could be some growing pains with Forbes. So this really isn't a big standout at corner. I know Fuller's solid, but the safety group is really solid. No star player here, but Curl and Forrest, a really solid safety duo. So some balance here with the secondary. 14, the Niners. Javarius Ward played very well last year. Lenore expected to be the other corner, and Isaiah Oliver, who could play outside or inside. Hufanga had an all-pro type season, and Gibson was actually pretty good, but better than expected. It's a good group. They played better than 14 last year. Ward and Hufanga are big-time players. I don't think they'll be quite as good as last year. D'Amico Ryans really called a good defense, and the coverages were right. They mixed it up quite a bit. They could do the same this year. Steve Wilkes is a very good defensive coach, but I thought they kind of had perfect players. I thought D'Amico Ryans maybe was a perfect defense coordinator for some of these players. So maybe they won't be quite as good. But a lot of good secondaries, and they are ranked 14th because they are a good one. 13, the Patriots. Jonathan Jones can play outside or inside. He played more outside last year. Christian Gonzalez, a fantastic pick. He's going to start on the outside. Then Miles Bryant, they're starting to play more and more in the slot. They also have Marcus Jones for the slot. They also have Jonathan Jones, who I have starting at outside, could play in the slot. They have Jalen Mills, who can play. He's had time at corner and safety, so he can play in that spot as well. They also have Jack Jones, which he had a stretch of pretty good football when they finally put him in, but then they kind of play him less and less. Then he had that off-the-field issue and more in this offseason, so we'll see what happens with him. And then Kyle Duggar, who I'm a big fan of. He's going to be fantastic. And then Jabril Peppers. They also have Phillips, but no McCourty. I think they might want Peppers replacing him, even though that's not really the same player, but that's kind of what I think they're going to go with. But I think Duggar's on his way to being a star player. I think so. I think Christian Gonzalez has that potential in him. I thought he was the best corner in the class, so I think he's going to play like the best corner in the class this year. Jonathan Jones, a really solid corner that can play inside, outside. He's only getting better on the outside, which he played more of last year. Bryant's a sneaky good slot player. Again, they have other options there as well. So maybe most people would look at this and they go, there's really no big names. But again, I think Duggar's a big name. Jones and Gonzalez really could be as well. So well-coached group as well. So 13 for the Patriots. 12 for the Cleveland Browns. I like the corner group. I like the depth. Denzel Ward. And they have Greg Newsome, Martin Emerson, which the health, I guess, is the situation with Ward, but more so Newsome. Emerson playing outside, though, looked pretty good when he had to do that. Like when he had to fill in, he looked pretty damn good. So I guess they can move some of these guys around. They had Juan Thornhill on top of Delpit. Solid safety group, not super sexy, I suppose, but solid, young, can continue to get better. But a pretty balanced group. Denzel Ward, a standout guy there. Number 11, the Bengals, very well coached group. Chidobe Awuzie, very solid lockdown corner. Cam Taylor-Britt looked really good playing last year, and he actually has experience in his past college, past playing safety, so some versatility. Mike Hilton's the best slot player in football. Plain and simple, is the best slot corner in football. Very good in coverage, and he's got great instincts and can blitz at a very high level. Nick Scott was pretty solid for the Rams the past couple years. I think he's a guy you can move around, free or strong safety, play that split scheme with him. I think it's going to fit the Bengals very well. He's going to play better than what is, people don't, Nick Scott, not a big name. He's going to play better than that. And Daxton Hill, they have a lot of hope for him, a lot of upside at the safety position, but he can play in the slot. He can play all spots. Pretty much Nick Scott, Dax Hill can play both safety spots, but Dax Hill can also play in the slot. And then again, Taylor-Britt, I don't know if they're going to do it much, but they can line him up at safety. They also drafted Jordan Battle, so they get creative. They got guys that really could mix it up, and not really with just the position, but with coverages. They got guys that thrive in, man, cover 2, cover 4, like all at the same time. People don't really think about those things when doing these exercises. So I like that a lot. I mean, you have a star slot corner in Mike Hilton as well. So that also helps. 10, the Baltimore Ravens, which, you can go different routes here. I think what people don't, I guess what's up in the air is how they use Kyle Hamilton. But I think what people don't realize is where he thrived at the end of last year was actually in the slot position. He is a safety, but that can play very well in the slot. But they lost Chuck Clark, so they use, because they tried using Hamilton more safety early in the year. Then they kind of decreased the snaps. He actually wasn't playing super well. He was a rookie. And they put him back in. He played a lot in the slot, like mainly slots for a safety. And he played great, So I would think they would keep him there. And then maybe they do like Geno Stone a little bit. That would be more of the Chuck Clark replacement rather than some of the other options they have. Which might be bigger names to some people. They do have Brandon Stevens, which there's been some talk about him playing corner or safety. They do have him. Do they play him kind of in the box? Take that Chuck Clark role, put Kyle Hamilton at safety. And Hamilton, I really liked his play at free safety at Notre Dame, but you have Marcus Williams, who's a very solid free safety, so you're not really going to see that. So they're kind of playing around with him at strong and at slot, almost like a slot corner, and he played better in the slot than he does at strong safety. But honestly, might be better at free than both those. But they do have Marcus Williams, a very good free safety. Marlon Humphrey's a very good corner. And Rock Ya-Sin, who, if I'm being honest, I've been thinking the last several years been a little on the overrated side. Does have the injury concern, but I think fits pretty well with this group. Could be solid. Could somebody, one of the younger guys, step up? We talked about Stevens or Jalen Armour-Davis. Could a guy like that step up here? But they do make the top 10. It's a pretty good group. You got Marlon Humphrey, you got Marcus Williams, you got Kyle Hamilton. You got 3 big-time players there, and you can get creative with Kyle Hamilton. So they are at number 10. Number 9 is going to be the Philadelphia Eagles, which the cornerback duo is fantastic. Cornerback duo says top tier, and 9 is pretty close to top tier. Darius Slay and James Bradbury. Vontae Maddox, a pretty solid slot player. Safety group is pretty brutal. Terrell Edmonds, who I thought struggled with the Steelers, but I guess could help the Eagles. And then Reed Blankenship, who actually played decent for the Eagles last year. I think losing Gannon could hurt the secondary a little bit. They do have that front 7, which is ridiculous, but they were so well coached. They were so unique. They had the strong cornerback duo, which they still have, but they have Gardner Johnson moving around everywhere, and a lot of help defense, a lot of mixing up the coverages, which I think made the safeties look better than they were last year. So I do think that could be tough losing Gannon, but they have the very good cornerback duo, and again, Maddox is a solid slot guy. So they are in the top 10. They are in the top 10 here. Very good group here. 8, the Buccaneers, very solid cornerback duo in Carlton Davis and Jamel Dean. Zion McCollum could be that slot guy. He had some reps last year, has some upside. And a very good safety group. Antoine Winfield Jr., who's always very solid, and I think could be even better this year because he's improving, but they're going to play him in more an appropriate spot this year, more in the back end, more reps in the back end. Ryan Neal was very solid last year as well. So I like the balance, but you got really good players too. Both corners are really good. Antoine Winfield could be a star player. So there's a mixture of balance and really good players here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 7, the Miami Dolphins, which took a hit losing Jalen Ramsey for most, or if not all of the season, but expected to be most. so he won't be starting week 1. But they could have been number 1 because Jalen Ramsey's that good. He's arguably the number 1 corner. You know, if you don't think he's number 1 corner, he's top 3. It's a fact that he's top 3. So him and Xavier Howard, you know, Xavier Howard being number 2, I mean, that's a ridiculous group, you know. But Kader Kohou, they played pretty damn solid last year when he had to fill in. And Nick Needham, you know, got injured last year as well, but they do like him in the slot. You know, they had Cam Smith. I don't know if he starts week 1, but I did like that draft pick. He could play on the outside, possibly. And they may start with this group. And then safety Javon Holland's a stud, obviously. And it's a Brandon Jones versus Deshaun Elliott at the other safety spot. Could they play all 3 safeties instead of playing the nickel corner Nick Needham? I think it's a possibility as well. Fangio's a very good defense coordinator. But looking at it on paper, it does get held up by Howard and Holland a little bit. They do take even though they're 7, they do take a pretty big hit because they would have been pretty much at the top by losing Jalen Ramsey for most of the season at least. 6, the Saints. I like the Saints group. I happen to see PFF's secondary rankings. They had the Saints way at the bottom. I did not agree with that at all. Marshawn Lattimore has to stay healthy, but he's a very, very, very good corner. And then the other outside corner spot's actually a camp battle between Paulson Adebo and Alontae Taylor. I was a big Alontae Taylor fan last year coming out of Tennessee. I think he's got a lot of upside. Adebo I'm a fan of as well. He's playing very, very well. I think maybe he has the edge. Either way, it doesn't really change much at all. Bradley Roby, they found a home for him in the slot. He was a very good slot corner for them when he was on the field last year. And then the safety group is pretty good. Tyrann Mathieu, one of the better ones in football. And Marcus May. Honestly, I thought Marcus May would be a little better for them than where he's been at, but he's a solid safety here. So I like balance, and you got some stud players in Lattimore and Matthew. I got, you know, Roby was really good in the slot. I think May could only be better. And you got some rising studs in Adebo and in Alontae Taylor. You know, they're pretty deep as well. They're very good at coaching the secondary play, the defensive backs, I should say. They have the Saints at 6. Broncos at 5. They got stars. They got Patrick Surtain and Justin Simmons. These are star players here. So that helps when you have, you know, maybe the best corner in football, one of the very best free safeties in football that can play single high as good as anybody. So that really helps. Damari Mathis is going to be solid. He's got a lot of upside. Maybe some growing pains still. He gets a little bit grabby. Guan Williams is a solid slot corner. And then Kareem Jackson versus Caden Stearns for the other safety spot. Jackson has that experience. I think he can fit Vance Joseph's defense as well. So, yeah, it's a very good group. I mean, you got star players that really help. It really helps when you have those guys as well. So they come in at number 5. A rival team for them at number 4, Los Angeles Chargers. Good cornerback group. Sante Samuel Jr. is very solid, only getting better. J.C. Jackson struggled last year, then was injured. If he's healthy, I would expect him to be much better than where he was playing last year, if he's healthy. So that's the thing. So if he's healthy, I think he'll be very solid. Then Michael Davis also could play on the outside as well. It was actually better than J.C. Jackson last year, but J.C. Jackson, I still think could be very, very good. So they have 3 pretty solid corners there. And they have maybe the best safety in football in Derwin James, who's actually getting better. And they have Alohi Gilman, who's an underrated player, you know, kind of a do-it-all type guy. We could see maybe JT Woods sneaking in there as a free safety as well. But Gilman, tough dude too. So I think it's a pretty balanced group. I mean, looking at those corners, like 3 solid corners, and you have a star player in Derwin James. You have an underrated player in Gilman who can do a mixture of things, pairs well with Derwin James. You know, so I think it's a pretty good group here at number 4. Top 3. Number 3, the Buffalo Bills. You have maybe the best safety duo in football with Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde. Very good group there, obviously. Really good with that split, you know, safety look where, you know, really neither are free or strong. They cover half the field evenly, but when you do see one kind of drift back, one come up, it's more Micah Hyde being that free safety, Jordan Poyer being that strong, but a really good group there, veteran group, playmakers, studs. Tre'Davious White was underwhelming in his time playing last year, but still a solid corner. Could be better last year with a full season. Kyer Elam, he does have some competition, but when, you know, he played early in the year, he looked pretty good, like better than expected. And then they kind of went back down to earth, and they kind of were not using him as much. But then they started playing him a little bit more at the end there, and I thought he looked pretty solid. Still some growing pains kind of showed, but I would think he could step up and be that full-time starter. But then Teron Johnson's one of the better, definitely one of the better slot corners in football. Very, very solid. So you have a very strong, one of the best safety duos in football. You have one of the best slot guys in football, and you have Tre'Davious White and Kyer Elam there. Then, you know, Dane Jackson could step up. Benford, there's been some talk about him maybe getting some reps at safety as well. So The Bills come in a balanced group with some star players, star safety duo, star slot corner. Again, pretty damn good. Top 2, the Jets at number 2. Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed could be, you could argue, the best cornerback duo in football. I think my number 1 team has the best cornerback duo in football. But, Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed, fantastic cornerback duo. Then you have Michael Carter, who's a solid slot corner. And then Jordan Whitehead, who they have high hopes for. I think it was a tiny bit underwhelming last year, but a solid safety. And then with Adrian Amos, which they had Chuck Clark, they replaced with Amos because Clark got injured. So he's still a Jet, technically. The way I worded that was weird. But Amos is solid. In the right scheme, I think he'll play the right scheme. So the safety duo isn't the sexiest one out there. It's pretty solid. It's pretty balanced. And it's pretty balanced, this whole Jet secondary across the board. But then at the same time, you have a star cornerback duo with maybe the best corner, one of the best corners in football at Sauce Gardner. So I think it's extremely well coached as well. Extremely well. So they're at 2. I got the Cowboys at 1. I mean, that cornerback duo is the best in football. Trevon Diggs, who's only getting better, maybe the best playmaker in all of football. And Stephon Gilmore. These are man coverage corners here that are very solid. You got a playmaker with a lockdown guy. Mesh them together. Fantastic. With very well-coached defense under Dan Quinn. I think an underrated safety duo, and Donovan Wilson and Malik Hooker. They do have to stay healthy, but they've been very, very solid in this scheme. And you have Jerron Kearse, who's one of the very best box players in football. You see him listed as a safety, but he'll be up in the box. He'll be man, because it's a man coverage defense that Dan Quinn runs. He'll be man covering tight ends. And he can almost play like a linebacker sometimes as well. So he's actually one of the better of the box players in all of football. He's been fantastic. I'm happy about that too, because earlier in his career, he didn't get a whole lot of chances. When he did, he looked really good. I'm just sitting there like, why isn't this guy playing more? And he's kind of bounced around a little bit, finds a home with the Cowboys. Here we go. He's a good player as long as you play him in the right scheme, I suppose, and this is the right scheme. So they got balance. They got some underrated players, and they got star cornerback duo here, the best in football, which I think could be Diggs, because he's young, getting better. He's only going to get better. You add Gilmore on top of him, the lockdown guy opposite of you. That's going to make Diggs better too. And then Gilmore played very solid with the Colts last year. The Cowboys got a much better defense, and he fits the Cowboys one much better too. So he actually could be better, even though he's aging, than last year. So I like this group a lot. They are at number 1 for me. So there's my top 32 secondaries in football for 2023. I'm sure everyone's in full agreement with this list here. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. I always talk with you guys on Twitter. Videos like this all over the channel. More to come. Different types of videos as well. And then in-season content I cannot wait for right around the corner. Make sure you join us, like, subscribe, turn notifications on. Check out those links pinned in the comments. You won't regret what you find there. That's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.